Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. In this episode, we're going to make our way into the Great Bay Temple, and wouldn't you know it, all we really got to do that is fire our hook shot at the tree on the back of a giant turtle, and it will take us to the third temple in the game. I mean, who would have ever guessed? But there is going to be a small, tiny, pretty cool cutscene here that I think you might want to enjoy yourselves. And here we are in the Great Bay Temple, probably one of my, actually I'd say this is my least favorite temple in the game, but it is kind of cool in its own right. The first thing we need to do is fire fire arrows at these torches in the first room, because if we do that, we will make a treasure chest appear here, and that will have our first stray fairy. And of course there are only 15 stray fairies, and we get the first one in the first room. Now the cool thing about this temple is, and I'm not going to do it right now because it would take a long time to set up, but this torch right here on the right, you can actually use to get into the boss room in about 20 seconds using a glitch through the floor. But as Tattle says right here, there's a huge water wheel in the middle, and that water wheel and something in the next room are going to be kind of the focal points of this dungeon. But before we get on with that, we need to go ahead and take out this Skulltula right here because it has a stray fairy, and I did not actually really mean for it to fly all the way over there, because wherever it dies is where, and I need to get the stray fairy under here as well, but wherever the stray fairy, or wherever the enemy that has the stray fairy in it dies, that is where the stray fairy will spawn. So if I had killed it with like a bomb or whatever, I wouldn't have had to go all the way over there to get that. But anyway, over here there is a switch on the ground that we need to hit, and of course we have to use the Zora mask to be able to walk on the floor to be able to push it. And we're gonna have to use, of course, it just makes sense, the Zora mask quite a bit in the Great Bay Temple, just like we've had to use, you know, like the Deku Mask a lot in the Swamp Temple, the Woodfall Temple, I should probably call it by its proper name, and the Gora Mask in the Snowhead Temple. But this elevator thing, or whatever you want to call it that I'm on right now, is probably the hardest little platforming session in the entire game, and that might not sound, I don't know how I didn't take damage there, that might not sound like legitimate, but to me, for some reason, getting on that platform is one of the hardest things, and also this little water wheel, or like water pillar thing we've got to stand on over here is really hard to get on as well. It's probably not hard to anybody else, but for some reason, I always jump at the wrong time and fall off. Luckily, I made it through there, but I did get hit by that Skulltula. I wonder why I didn't get hit by that first one, but anyway, here we are in the second room of the game. Of course, Tattle has to tell us yet another huge water wheel is powering this thing. This room right here, like I said before, is kind of like the focal point of the dungeon, and we will get to know this room very well. I need to go ahead and take out some bombs because we're going to need to blow up this barrel over here. I guess we don't have to waste bombs. We could probably use the Goron Punch, but you know, anytime we really get to use bombs is a good time for me. Now, that is our fourth stray fairy. I actually thought it was going to be my third one, but our fifth stray fairy is going to be down at the bottom of this little thing right here. And this, navigating this area is probably one of the harder things to me in this temple. It's really not that bad, you just gotta be a little bit patient with it, I guess. Now, getting the stray fairy in the middle here is a little bit of a pain as well, probably because the way I do it anyway is to use my fins as a Zora and try and aim it at the little pot in the middle here, and I actually made it on the second try, so that's not that bad. I'm really not sure how else you could do it. I mean, I'm sure there's probably better ways, and smarter people than I have devised ways that were easier than that, but I guess it didn't look that bad. Now, we need to go ahead and go in the second little red temple, or not temple, kind of corridor, I guess, from the bottom, and there is a little trick that I want to show you guys that will make this a tiny little bit easier. If you go ahead and take off your mask and get right up close to a platform like this, and put on your Zora mask, for some reason it will push you up just a tiny little bit, and you will be able to get onto the platform like that. And there was a stray fairy in that pot. I do believe that we're not supposed to be here right now, or to be able to get on that platform right now. I think there's an item we're gonna get later on in the dungeon. I'm pretty sure they intended you to have that item before you get that stray fairy, but you know what? They shouldn't have made that platform so low. But here we get the map of the temple, of course, it seems like it is especially useful in the Great Bay Temple. And now we need to go down in this little platform down here. I want to go ahead and examine this enemy right here. This is a Dexy hand. We just got to be careful and not let it grab us. That's actually a fairly, common sense explanation there. I guess that's what you get for having Tattle and not Navi. So everybody that complained about Navi in the first game, that is what you get. Simple little explanations like that. Now here we have a new enemy, of course. Actually, they're not new. We fought these before when we went to get that heart piece right in front of the wall that blocked off the Great Bay Temple area, just the Great Bay area in general, I guess. Those are Biodeku Babas, and we have to take them out, of course, and this one up here, to get another treasure chest to appear to get another stray fairy. So you actually do have to do a little bit of fighting, I should say, in this temple, which is kind of cool, I guess. All the other temples, it seems like you just have to pretty much run by everything. Now, one thing I'm going to do right here to make this easier is take off my Zora mask, because if you try and jump over a body of water as a Zora, he has a tendency to just kind of dive instead of jumping forward like I wanted Link to do right there. We're going to have to do some judo punching and stuff to take out this Biodekubob, and he has a little bit more HP than I thought he was going to have, but of course I took him out without too much of a problem. And here is that treasure chest that I just mentioned a few seconds ago. I've lost track of what number this is. I think 7 now? And that is our 7th one. So now I only have, 8 more to go, and you would think that we might be about halfway through the temple right now, because we have about half of these stray fairies. That, of course, is not the case, unfortunately. We have a lot left to go. Now, this room right here is a bit of a pain as well, but we will get to the harder part a little bit later on. Down here, if we throw our fins at the water and go ahead and equip the Great Fairy Mask, we will be able to get the stray fairy out of the water there. You can probably use arrows or maybe the hook shot to break open that little thing right there, but I found that the fins, of course, are maybe a little bit easier. We need to get to the bottom of this thing right here and open this treasure chest. This treasure chest has the only key in the entire dungeon that I can think of other than the boss key, so I think that's kind of cool. One thing I do like about the temples in Majora's Mask is that they don't rely on keys as much, it seems like Ocarina of Time's temples did. It's more about exploration more than, finding keys and getting through it. But as Link here, we need to go ahead. Actually, I kind of want to go ahead and lock onto this bomb shoe. I want to show you what happens. And as you can see, for some reason, if you if you latch onto a real bomb shoe with your hook shot, and we're just going to open this treasure chest right here, which will have the compass in it. For some reason, if you hook onto a bomb shoe with the hook shot, it will fly towards you. So I think that's kind of a funny way if you really just don't care how much HP you have left. You can go ahead and take out the real bomb shoe that way. And a little bit later on, there might be one that we can use that to our advantage, or we can use that property of the bomb shoe to our advantage. Now, we're done with this room. I just want to go ahead and put on our Zora mask, because, of course, we are going to be swimming in the water. And having the Zora mask on, I cannot believe I'm not going to get in there. Whoa, I don't know what that was, but I don't even remember where I was going with that. Anyway, the Zora will not drown, of course, in the water like Link would if we left him out of the Zora form. Kind of like having the blue tunic on from Ocarina of Time. Now, this room right here, of course, there's a lot of stuff we need to worry about. The first thing we need to do, of course, is walk onto the red pipe, and you might not even expect to be able to do that, but of course we have to do that to be the temple. For this bomb shoe, I actually kind of thought I had the bow equipped on the right C button there. Might as well go ahead and equip that right now. I don't really want to use the hookshot technique right there, because I don't want to get blown off of the pipe here. And if you get, actually, it's not a really big deal in this room right here if you get knocked off the pipe, but later on, and here's the only locked door in the dungeon except for the boss door, by the way, it's not a big deal if you get knocked off that pipe, because you can just go right back up. But later on, there are going to be pipes that we do not want to fall off of. But as you can see here, we have like a recharging station that we are going to need to use, or kind of take advantage of, I should say, before we go into this little mini boss room. You might not see anything, but if we look up, here we get the luxury of fighting Wart. Actually, one of my favorite bosses in the game. I think it's a really cool boss. The only problem is that we do not have a sword right now, because I dropped it off at the smithy, and it is still being forged into the gilded sword. So, we are going to have to make liberal use of bombs. We probably could use arrows, but what is cooler, using arrows or using bombs? Bombs is probably the way to go. Now, luckily, we do have the biggest bomb bag, which means we get 40 bombs to work with, and actually, that kind of reminds me. when we saved the old lady on day 1 and got the big bomb bag, which led us to getting the biggest bomb bag, saving the old lady on the first day made it impossible to finish the Andrew and Cafe side quest. I completely forgot about that. We've gone as far as we can in that side quest, so we will not be able to finish that until the next cycle. So that's a little bit disappointing, especially because I just flat out forgot that if you save the old lady on day 1, you can't finish the side quest, but it's really not a big deal. We can just finish that on the next next cycle, I should say. Now, I'm getting kind of low on HP here. I would love to continue using bombs, but arrows might be the way to go now, especially since we have to shoot the wart right in the eye, and I'm actually not even sure how much HP he has left, but I'm getting dangerously close to dying. Luckily, I do have a fairy with me. Actually, I was not even planning on using the fairy on this boss fight should I die. I was actually kind of intending to use the fairy on the boss fight, because the boss fight is one of those enemies that I think everybody hates, and I did not even mean to hit the eye right there. I actually meant to hit that bubble, but the eye flew right in the way, and I guess that's the way that we are going to take out Wart. Like I said, one of my favorite bosses in the entire game, probably more of a mini-boss. But here we get a golden treasure chest, and of course it's not a key or the boss key, which means it's probably going to be this dungeon's specific item, and it's actually kind of a cool item, and that item is the ice arrows, which we can of course use, they're set to C to power up our arrows, and we can freeze enemies and obstacles or objects. I think what I want to do now is go ahead and, since this is going to take a while, loot all of these arrows, or loot all these pots I should say, and I'll meet you in the next room. And here we are back in the room with the red pipe. Now I need to go ahead and equip my ice arrows because we're going to need to use that right here in this room. And as you can see, I have almost full hearts at this point, so like I said, it took a little while to take care of all those pots. Especially, like, I had to keep going in and out of the room to get those jelly things to respawn, to get more arrows and more magic. But we need to use our ice arrows on one of the 2 little octa rocks in this room, because if we shoot them, they will turn into a block of ice, and we need to get up to that little platform up there, because there is another switch that we need to hit, and luckily that thing did not knock me off the platform there. But what this will do is turn on the red water, so we're going to have to actually hit 2 switches, I believe, to get the red water all the way back on. And you might remember that spinning water wheel in the second room, I believe, in the dungeon. The red water thing that we just turned on is going to affect that a little bit later on as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of little switches and stuff you got to hit, and a lot of them you have to hit in a certain order, or you're going to have to do a lot of backtracking. But speaking of backtracking, I will meet you guys back in that room where we did that little Zoramash trick to get back up on that platform. Alright, here we are back in this room. Now that we have the ice arrows, we can use its little ability to create platforms in the water to get up here on this, or to get to this door that we need to get to. We were not able to get up here before, and apparently I'm not even good at making jumps anymore. But I'm not even, it looks like it would be close enough to make a jump. Maybe I just wasn't close enough to the edge, or didn't have enough speed, or something like that. We can try to make another little, yeah, I didn't think that was gonna work. Sometimes if you try and make platforms too close to the edge of like a wall or something like that, it won't work. But if we can shoot this with an ice arrow, we can freeze it, and it will turn into a block. This mechanic, unfortunately, is not really used that often, but I think that actually is a fairly cool mechanic, like turning enemies into blocks or something like that that you have to use to beat temples and dungeons and stuff like that. Unfortunately, like I said, I think that's like the only one that I can remember where you have to do that. But here we have another red switch, which means that we are going to have to go back to the room with the water wheel in the first or second room and turn the water on in a different kind of configuration. So I guess I'll meet you guys back in the second room. I know I feel like I've sped up or cut out or whatever a lot of stuff already, but this temple is absolutely full of backtracking, so I think you guys will thank me in the end. You know, it's a good thing I ran into this room right here, because I forgot that we need to get the boss key. That would have been terrible if we got all the way through here and I forgot to get the boss key. We could have always come back, but that would have even added more backtracking, which the only reason I'm even cutting or speeding anything up, the only time I ever do that is to eliminate backtracking and, you know, get the nitty-gritty out there to you guys. That would have been horrible. It would have been like triple the backtracking. But anyway, if we use our fire arrows, we can melt that huge block of ice, and we can just use our Zora fins to break these stalactites. Like I said, I don't ever remember what these are, but those usually have magic in them, which you will need for this boss fight. You need them because you have to be able to use the ice arrows, and here we get yet another one of those frog enemies that we fought in the... which temple was that? I actually already forgot. The Woodfall Temple is where we fought it. Luckily, I got that first hit in there. This boss fight is actually one of the cheaper ones I found, and I don't like calling things cheap, but it is a little bit cheap because if it grabs onto you, it does a mega combo and does a lot of damage that you cannot break out of. Luckily, if you freeze it while it's on the ceiling like that, it will fall down and break, and you can get a little bit more damage in. But you have to wait until it's on the ceiling. If you try and freeze it like right now, for instance, if I tried to freeze it, it would not freeze in the right configuration, and it would not fall into the ground, and you would not be able to do any more damage. Now, this boss fight's going eerily well. Usually I get damaged a lot more than I have already, and I don't think I've actually taken any damage. Of course, that's probably going to change, though. What usually gets me is exactly right there. I was going to say, I get into a corner and try to shoot, and he looks in the wrong direction, even though I guess I'm going to get caught and take damage. But sometimes when you try and turn around and shoot enemies, that Z-targeting thing, or whatever I talked about one time in the mountain village, it gets on me and it doesn't lock on in the right direction. But there we go, I froze him again. Hopefully, and I kind of don't think so, but I hope this is the final hit, and of course it was not. I actually didn't think I was going to hit him, because a lot of times, the blobs, or the bubbles, or whatever you want to call it, will block him from being hit. And you, of course, will have to wait another cycle or whatever. Now, I actually didn't think that was going to work, and it didn't. It looked like it was going to work for a second. That little part that drips off in the middle, usually you have to wait for that to be, like, reabsorbed into the whole mass itself, or it will not fall far enough to break. But there we go. I mean, I took him out without too much of a problem. I actually didn't look that annoying in that situation, but usually when you fight him, he actually turns into one of the most annoying enemies in the game, in my experience anyway. Now, taking him out is going to allow us access to the boss key. So now we have the boss key, and we need 8 more, I believe, straight berries, and we're going to be free to go into the boss. We're only like, I don't know, I'd say about 20 minutes into the episode right now, but here's the boss key. Now we need to go back. Speaking of backtracking, I love how they put a little hookshot thing in here that we can get. But yeah, we need to go back to the second room in the temple. I will meet you guys back there. Alright, I made it back up here finally. That little thing in the middle was kind of trolling me there, so I think I'll leave that up, or leave that in the, you know, the video here. But anyway, here there's a little bit of a, I consider this to be a little bit hidden, this hookshot target on the ceiling. And back in the day when I tried to beat this game, that hookshot target right there was pretty much solely what kept me from beating it the first time I tried. I guess time just ran out and I had to like reset time and come back, and then I eventually finally found it, because it's not immediately obvious that is how you get up there. But anyway, I was only like 8 or something when I played it for the first time, so I guess you can't blame me too much. But what that did right there is turn on the red water, and now we need to turn off the yellow pipe, because we need the red water to reverse the water flow. Now, turning on the red water and turning off the yellow water is going to be our ticket to like the second half of the dungeon, if you want to call it that. But really what's going to end up happening is we're going to have to turn on the green water, which I don't think we've even seen yet. So as you can see, like, this is one of those temples that is kind of convoluted, and from what I've heard, a lot of people don't even really like this temple. Like, I think I remember seeing the JonTron video one time, where he talked about, like, boss fights he didn't like. Nobody likes the boss fight in this temple at all. And the reason I got that berry before this episode even started was because of that boss fight. The boss fight in this temple is probably one of the most annoying in the entire series, and so is, you know, the temple itself. I actually kind of consider this temple to be harder than the water temple. If you have no idea what you're doing, turning on all the right water switches and stuff like that and figuring out where to go is a little bit of a pain. But now that we've turned on the red water and turned off the yellow water, you can see that the spinning thing here is spinning in the opposite direction. And we need to get on the little oar, or whatever you want to call it, the little propeller, and come to the other side. I found if you stand closer to the middle, when you try and jump on it, you're not going to jump off nearly as many times. But somehow, I don't know how it works, if you freeze that waterfall, it will stop flowing, even though I guess that doesn't even really make much sense scientifically, but it's a good thing that it works, because we need to come in this room right here. Now, this room right here is a fairly easy room. I need to go ahead and take care of this Tektite. Might as well go ahead and turn in my Zora form, because I don't have my sword to take care of it at the moment, which would be the best way, I guess. The reason I want to take out this Tektite, normally it probably wouldn't be a big deal, is because we're going to have to do a little bit of platforming in a second, and that Tektite has a tendency to knock me off, so anything I can do to mitigate that, you know, just make it not happen in the first place, would be a good thing to do. Now, I need to go ahead and make up some ice platforms here, because we need to get to the green water switch. Like I said, we need to turn on the green water. No, actually, it's not even really green water, just turn on the green pipes, because the green pipe is what is going to allow us to get to the boss. If we don't do this, of course, we can't beat the temple. But now that we've turned it, or, you know, we're in the process of turning it, there is a very well hidden stray fairy in this room. Actually, it's on the map right now, so it's not that well hidden. We need to come back over to this yellow platform, and I just saw that there's another Tectite down there, so that's actually a really bad thing, but I don't know how I'm going to defeat that one. Especially because I don't think fire arrows, I think if I try and hit it with an ice arrow, it's going to just freeze it and not actually defeat it. But what we need to do is put an ice arrow or ice platform out here somewhere. I'm not even entirely sure where you're supposed to put it, but there's going to be a hookshot thing, and this thing is getting dangerously close. Yeah, well, there we go. So I guess I get like another try at this. I don't really have much more magic to make much more ice platforms, or many more ice platforms, I guess I should say. So I guess what I'm gonna do is go ahead and get the ice, or the magic pots or whatever here at the bottom. Most of these will drop magic or arrows, which is a good thing. So I will meet you guys when I put an ice arrow or an ice platform in the right position. Alright, I think we are in the right position right now. Might as well just go ahead and check. If not, I guess we're going to go on another speed up session, but it looks like we are in fact in the right position. That's a really weird position to try and get into, because you have to get it as close to the wall as possible. But like, as I, established earlier, the closer you are to the wall, the more likely it's just going to hit the wall and not actually create an ice platform. By the way, up there were a lot of red rupees, but I forgot to go deposit my rupees after the last episode, so I guess it is just, we're going to have to waste a lot of rupees. But now that we are swimming in the opposite direction now, because we turned on the red water and turned off the yellow water, we can go into the green. Well, there's that little weird glitch again. We can go into the green little corridors, and we need to go in this one right here to progress with the dungeon. A lot of these, and as you can see, that thing we just passed through right there was near the boss key, so we could have gone through that way to get to the boss key room, if in fact, like before, when I almost forgot to get the boss key, you can go that way after you've already turned the water in the opposite direction. I've just found it really hard to make a pit stop, if you will, in the boss key room because of the way it turns so quickly. Now this right here is always a weird thing to do. You have to jump on the, I almost fell off there too. You have to jump on that middle thing and keep rolling until it puts you onto that platform. And I guess I have like a rubber, hook shot, because there's no way that I should have been able to twist and turn like that. But it's a good thing it did, because we've got to our 10th stray fairy. But now what we need to do is go back to that elevator thing. I hope I don't have to do that little rolling mechanic on the platform again. I've always found it really hard to stay on. It just so happens that the platform got there fairly quickly the first time, so it didn't look that bad. And wouldn't you know it, the platform went away. So I'm going to have to try and balance up here. And of course, I knew I was not going to be able to do that, because, I don't know, just the way the platform is kind of situated, and the fact that I'm technically playing on the GameCube controller right now, even though I was going to say the N64 controller. In any case, the controls in this game are not as precise as I remember them being, so trying to stay on that platform is a little bit of a pain, but I made it onto this platform now, and we can progress in the room. Now, I wish more of the temple was like this room, in that the challenge of this room is a little bit of a puzzle in the actual room itself, unlike, it seems like up to this point, it was pretty much just go find the switches that you need to progress through the temple, but in this one it's like freeze that waterfall and this platform will freeze itself. Now up here there's a sort of a little hidden in plain sight stray fairy that we need to get with our hookshot. And one thing I want to mention in about this room is that in the Japanese version, when you freeze that waterfall, it will not necessarily stop in the correct orientation that you need it to be. You actually have to wait until when you freeze it, it will make the platform in such a way that you can come over here and walk on it and jump to the door to get out. I kind of like that a little bit better, but I can imagine that it would get a little bit tedious, especially if you kept trying it and it kept not working. But anyway, we need to get down here on the floor. Apparently, I'm just going to play jumping, a jumping game with the platform there. But we need to go ahead and turn it into our Zora form, because we need to come down here. There is a weird stray fairy to get right here where you have to Z target and roll. Actually, I'm not sure if you technically have to do it this way. You might be able to swim into it. But I found if you Z-target and roll, that is just the easiest way to take care of it, and that is our 12th stray fairy, so we are almost done. Pretty much all we have left is the rest of the room that we're in right now, and then the final room, and then the boss room. I guess you could kind of consider the boss room to be the final room, but anyway, this room is more of a puzzle than even the last room, and what we have to do is use fire arrows and ice arrows in conjunction with each other to get ourselves to the top of the room. So basically, the idea of this room is to use fire arrows to melt the ice to make the one end of the seesaw to go down, or you can use ice arrows to freeze the waterfalls to make the seesaws go back up. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think you guys get the idea. The only problem is that it is really not that hard. I mean, you do like 2 little shots with your arrows and it's pretty much over. The only shot we're gonna have to make with an arrow now is, I think, 1 more ice arrow shot, or another fire arrow shot, so it's not like a huge puzzle or anything. But that right there is our final switch that we're gonna have to hit, and this, by the way, is that bomb chew that I was talking about earlier that we're going to want to hit off of the pipes, because if we get knocked off the pipes right now, and by the way, you have to be a Zora to get up on top of this platform, but if we get knocked off right now, we are going to have to do this room pretty much all over again. Even though it's pretty short, I would not want to have to do that. But over there is a treasure chest, and if we use our hook shot to lock onto it, which I believe is probably the only way to get over to it, we will get our 13th stray fairy, and we are pretty much clear to go to the final room in the game, except for the fact that we need to stand on this platform right here and use fire arrows on the last waterfall, and we can ride up to the exit to this room. But one thing I think that would make this room a little bit more fun is if you could equip ice arrows and fire arrows at the same time. If you try to equip more than 1 elemental arrow at the same time, or even just like regular arrows and any other type of arrow, it will not let you do that. So I'm not really sure why they would not let you do that, but I feel like that would make the game quite a bit easier. But I'm gonna see if there's any magic in these. Unfortunately, there's not. Magic will probably be, actually, I'm telling you, it will be easy or, you know, useful in the final boss. It will make the final boss a tiny little bit easier, but I don't want to make the boss seem like it's going to be easy. It's definitely not easy, but magic will make it just a tiny little bit easier. But now that we've gotten that, we can go in the southernmost, or, you know, the green corridor farthest down on the bottom. Unfortunately, the corridors, or the currents, I guess you could say, are pushing me away. If we just go on the outside, I should eventually be able to sneak my way in there, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, there we go. So this is the final room in the game, but before we go up, we need to go down, because the exit to this room, which is down there in the bottom right corner of this screen that I'm looking at right now, there is a stray fairy. So what I'm going to do is pop the bubble that it's in. You could probably swim into it to pop the bubble and get it that way, but what I'm going to do is pop the bubble that way, and then come up on this pipe right here, because there is another stray fairy that we need to get, basically shoot with an arrow, and then put on my Great Fairy Mask and get both of them at the same time without having to leave this room, because otherwise, I would have to leave the room and come back, which we do not want. But it's probably going to take a little while, so I will meet you guys when I get these stray fairies. I actually don't really know why I thought it was going to take that long. I kind of thought, because it was so far away in the room, that it was going to take quite a bit of time to get to where I was, but I guess not. Anyway, here is the final switch in the game. I think I might have accidentally said the other green switch that I hit was the final switch in the game, but I take that back. This is the final switch, and not even in the game. I know I said that just now. In this temple is what I should say, and what that does is allow this water geyser to be a platform that allows us to get to the boss door. Now, this boss is probably, like I said, one of the most, I would say, difficult ones in the game, so I'm not really feeling good about my chances, but what I like to do is do like a judo karate kick right into the boss room, and we're going to get, of course, one of those introductory cutscenes for this boss. I guess you could say that it has a mask on, but I don't know, it just looks like any old regular fish to me. What I like to do is shoot an arrow at it, and then turn into a Zora and go down here and hit with my shield thing. One way you can make it easy on yourself is if you swim into it with your shield, it will stun it also, and you can just get a bunch of rapid hits in that way. Unfortunately, it looks like Anna just got eaten, which is really bad. It looks like when I tried to stun it there with my shield, it was not working, so I'm just gonna keep trying it. If you can get it in a cycle of being stunned and then hitting it, you can go down very quickly. The only problem is, if you're doing that technique, you have a very high chance of dying or getting eaten, and getting eaten in this fight does like 2 hearts of damage, which is kind of crazy if you really think about it. I love how I just jumped off right there. One problem with this boss fight, I guess I'm gonna get eaten again, so it's definitely not looking good here, but one problem I have with this boss fight is if you don't know exactly where he is, it's kind of hard to be able to tell where he is if you're up there on that platform, so you just gotta kind of have to like stand on the edge and keep walking around until you happen to see him. And the problem with that is that he has an attack, and I'm trying to, like, not die here, which of course is, like, my goal in every, you know, boss fight, but right here I actually have to try a little bit harder. But he has an attack where if you stand close to the edge of this platform and you're on it, he will knock you off into the water almost entirely, or, you know, almost every time he'll knock you right in front of him and he will eat you. So, one thing you might want to do for this fight, and there's that attack, by the way, one thing you might want to do for this fight is, since by this point you will have all 15 stray fairies, is go to the Great Fairy Fountain, I should say, and get the reinforced hearts for this fight. But I thought, you know, why not just go ahead and take on the fight? Maybe I should have gone ahead and done that, because one more getting eaten fiasco will be the end of this boss fight. Maybe I should play it a little bit easier and use my arrows and stun him from up here. Trying to use my little, you know, quick kill technique definitely did not work for me. He quickly killed me, or I'm not dead yet. And okay, well, he's using his little fish technique right here. This is when you know you have him on the ropes, so you gotta be careful. But yeah, like I said, his quick kill technique definitely didn't work in my favor anyway. But, well, I guess that's it, guys. You know what? I'm dead. The good thing is that I have a fairy. So if I did not have a fairy, I would be done at this point. Probably would have even restarted the entire episode. I'm just so glad that I had the foresight to grab a fairy. I almost didn't. And by the way, as you can see, it only refills, you know, of that first line of hearts. So no matter how many hearts you have after that, getting revived will only revive you so much. Now, I don't even know what to talk about anymore. Pretty much it's just going to be that exact pattern of attacking over and over. I think that is like the first time I've died in any Let's Play that I can think of. I didn't die in Super Mario RPG, I didn't die in Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, Rechain of Memories, I don't think I died in Ocarina of Time, so I kind of ruined my streak there. But you know what, I guess you can't play perfectly all the time. Anyway, I'm kind of low on magic, and that is a bad thing, of course, because I don't know of any way of attacking him or hurting him, and I guess I'm just going to get eaten again. But I don't know of any way of hurting Gjord without using that shield technique. So what I'm gonna do, I guess, is go back up on the platform and hope I get a lucky arrow shot. Now, I do believe that I saw some bubbles coming up from where he is. Like, it's kind of hard to tell exactly where he is. I'm looking for bubbles. I don't see any, so maybe there he is. So yeah, you can kind of see some bubbles a little bit, and that can kind of tell you where he is. But overall, I feel like this boss fight was not very well designed. Maybe I only think that because I died. Anyway, that is all there is to Gjord. I'm going to go ahead and put the controller down. I don't even want to play this anymore. I'm just kidding. But what we have to do now, of course, is pick up our heart piece and go into the teleport thing. And we're going to be getting a cutscene where we get the third of the giants. So I hope you guys enjoy that. You know what? I really like the personality of that turtle. He really likes to listen to Lulu sing, so I guess the gods are going to allow him to stay here a little bit longer. And speaking of staying here a little bit longer, I think I'm just as tired as Link is right now. So, I'm going to go ahead and end this episode right here, and in the next episode, we will mop up a few things that we need to do before we end the cycle, and we will probably end up going back in time. In the next cycle, we are probably going to take on the final temple in the game, and of course, mop up the Andrew and Cafe side quest. So, I want to thank you guys for watching this episode of Let's Play The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and I hope to see you guys back for the next episode.